Sometimes you want to start something and you have a plan drawn out and everything. Then it's time to put it into effect. And then it's time. You're running on a schedule, and now it's time to do the thing and whatever it is you're doing. And then something goes wrong at the last minute. Well, that's okay, yeah, because life is like that. Yeah, life doesn't always go according to plan, and sometimes things goof up, but it didn't knock you off. As long as you are doing the best that you can in your life, you're not being knocked off the road. No, no, no. You're just standing still. You took a hit, but you're still on the road. Yeah? And you just have to shake it off and say, okay, what the hey is going on here? And examine the situation and start learning from it and make the best out of it that you can. And once you do that, you're still on that road. It's just that you're learning right now. Yeah, you're taking a little pit stop and you're learning and you're going to get knowledge and wisdom from this. And those are blessings. And then as you do this, whatever emotions came with that experience, they're neutralized and peace comes in yourself. And then before you know it, you're further on that healthy road than you thought. As you were learning and making the most of the situation, you're traveling on the road. You're not even aware of it, but you're moving. You're in the right direction, and you weren't even aware of it because you were learning. And once you come out of it, you're like, oh, look at where I'm at. Look at the people that I'm meeting. Things like that. That's how life is. So that's why, sometimes things don't go according to plan, but don't freak out. Yeah, just make the best of it. And that's what I was doing here. Just giving you a short example. So here we are. Yeah. Ta-da. Anyway, in the beginning, there was only one Wakan Tanka organization. And there were 8 people in it. Okay? Now, one of them was the Earth. And she had like a best friend. They were like sisters. And the sister's name was Unk. Unk was younger. But the Earth was very tempestuous. She really had a temper. Remember, this is the beginning. Okay? This is the beginning of the Earth. So she's still really young. And she's very temperamental. And you think about the development of the Earth, it makes sense. Because that's how it was in the beginning. The Earth was always moving. There were always volcanoes blowing and earthquakes and all these kind of things that were happening. So it makes sense. She was tempestuous. And she was jealous of Unk. And so the jealousy got so bad that she threw Unk into the water and told her to stay there. And the Earth does have more power than Unk at that time. Okay? At that time. I have to stress that. At that time. That's just the beginning of the story. Okay? So, the Earth had more power than Unk at that time. So she was able to cast her into the water and she told her to stay there. Now these 2 ladies were members of the first Wakan Tanka. Unk didn't do anything wrong. But the other members of the Wakan Tanka, they're young too. Okay? And so they're not always doing the right thing. But there is 2 of them that are really wise, that are in the Wakan Tanka. So they're not all immature, is what I'm saying. But they go through a development just like we do. So today, now they're grandmothers and grandfathers. They're really known as wise people. This is really important to know. I really, 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 really have to stress this. See, we're talking way in the beginning. Way, way, way in the beginning. And there's some animals on the Earth, but mostly it's plants. What I really would like you to remember is that in this story, at this time, the earth is not the wise grandmotherly woman that we see her as today. She always is complaining. She complains. She wants this and wants that. When she gets it, she finds fault with it. It's not good enough. And so she's handled with care. But at the same time, she's made aware by the wiser members of the Wakan. They tell her, say, hey, be careful. Because, whatever you do, you have to accept the consequences of that. And she would be, I don't care. I don't care. She's just very tempestuous, but it's true. She has to put up with the consequences of her actions. So, after Unk was thrown in the water, she was hurt, she was crying, and then she got angry because the other members of the Wakantanka didn't do anything to rectify the situation. So she became angry. And now she's on a new path. She wants to cause trouble for everything. She wants to cause problems. She wants to cause contention. She wants to make it so that people are disturbed, that people are always nervous, uneasy, scared at what's going to happen next. That's what she wants now. Because remember, she's seeking revenge. So there was a time period where the Wakantanka, remember I said there's 8 of them at this time, and there was a time period in which they created beings. Some of the members of the Wakantanka are the sun, the moon, the earth, Unk, the blue that you see in the sky, that's Sicangu, that allows for life to move, Tate, the wind, Ian, the mountain, and Wakan, the thunder being. So these are the 8, the first 8. And they created beings. For example, the sun creates beings that live in the fire. Wakan creates more Wakan, more thunder beings. But you kind of get the pattern here. Another thing that's being created is something called Tanka. These are helpers who live in small circular rocks. And these are helper spirits, and they're called Tanka. And sometimes they're called Tangashi. And in Lakota language, whenever something is really special to you, when something is endearing to you, you say la at the end of the word. So Tangashi, see, these really became loving grandfatherly helpers. And so as a result, then we call them Tangashi la. Now, there's a whole bunch of them, okay? There's not just one. So those were created by Ian, the mountain. And the ozone that we see, the blue we see in the sky, he creates something too, and they live up there. And even today, scientists are just now finding out what these are. They're not reporting it because it's going to scare the hell out of you if you see them. But some pilots who fly long-distance international flights have seen them. And also astronauts who are on the shuttle when they are going around the Earth, they see them too. And there is some film footage of them that NASA does have. And they do look really scary. There are creatures that are living up there. Real live animals. These creatures are what's allowing us to live on this earth. Think about that. these creatures, they eat the radiation that's coming in from outside. And that's how we're allowed to live on the earth. So when they say there's a hole in the ozone layer, what happened is that a lot of these creatures were killed in that area, and so radiation's leaking in. These creatures are what Sicangu created. Like I said, scientists are just now finding this stuff out, yet we have this information for millions of years. We already knew about it. Now, Khate, the wind, creates other winds. So the Gulf Stream and all these other winds are created that are going around the Earth. Remember that at that time the Earth is only one continent, so the wind stream patterns were different back then than they are today. The Earth creates more plants. Like I said, the sun creates beings that live in the fire. They're helpful too. They serve a purpose. They do serve a purpose. That's why fire is sacred. You have to be careful with it. There's beings that live in the fire. So you handle it with care. Okay? Remember, Unk is in the water. Now, at this creation period, she's angry. She wants revenge against the earth. So she decides to create all kinds of creatures that can live in the water and on the earth. And she puts her revenge energy into these creatures to cause trouble for the earth. And they're all kinds of shapes. And she's just angry. So she creates really funny looking things. It's just goofy. That's why when you see things in the water, they're strange. Remember, even 2 years ago, this place on the world where it's supposed to be the deepest area in the Pacific Ocean, and they sent the camera down there. Here something came, and it looked just weird. One of the weirdest looking things they ever seen. This is an example. These are the things that Unk created. Anyway, she creates all kinds of things, and they're all sizes. Some of them are gigantic. They're giants, and they go on the land, and when people started coming on the earth, they could eat a whole village. They were really just troublemakers. And there's lots of Lakota stories about these creatures. They're called Nkjehi. The really small ones that you can't see, they're called Nkjehila. And there's a certain kind that can poison the water, so that when you drink it, these little ones go inside your body and they make you sick. The way they describe them, these are microorganisms. Because the description is really interesting, and then when you look at these things under a microscope, it matches the description. So we had a word for that too. You can't see them, but yet we had a word for it. That's related to the story of these creatures that are living in the ozone. That's another story, but let's stay with this one. So Unk creates these things to cause trouble. So they go on the earth and they stomp around and they raise hell with people. And then Wakan, the thunder being, when she senses them, she goes after them and attacks. Because remember, this is trouble. They're causing trouble. They have unhealthy energy. And Wakan represents cleansing. So she comes to destroy them. So wherever there's battles, this is what a tornado is. That's why they always follow a river. Because they fight and fight and fight. Then when the Nkjehi is getting beat, he tries to jump in the water. But Wakan is trying to bring it up in the sky because it's going to strike it with lightning in the air and just totally obliterate it. Because there's stories that talk about that. And when people find their bodies, they describe them like they have really big yellow eyes, and they have scales, really, really giant scales. And people are they're told to burn it because it has trouble energy in it, disturbing energy. So you're not supposed to touch it. If you do, you have to go through inipi, a sweat lodge ceremony, to get that energy out. So now, this lady Unk, millions of years passed, and she developed. The earth developed into a grandmotherly woman, and Unk also developed into a grandmotherly woman. But Unk wanted to stay in the water. She didn't want to leave. She found a new home. So as a result, she created the second Wakan Tanka. So this is where the second Wakan Tanka is born. And there's lots of members in there too. That's another organization. Her group is not better than the first. The first is not better than hers. They just work differently. See, she was in development just like the earth was in development. Now today, both ladies are grandmothers. They live side by side. They're neighbors now. And they get along. So it's not a battle anymore. So Unk realized that in the water is so much beauty. It's a whole nother world there. And they needed somebody. The people in the water, they wanted Unk. They wanted her to live with them. They grew to love each other. So she wanted to stay. She didn't have a desire to come back on the earth anymore. Because what she grew to love was, this was her home. So she doesn't have these feelings of contention anymore. And the earth also grew up, and she's motherly, grandmotherly, and so is Unk. Unk is also motherly and grandmotherly, but for the water. So these Unkjehi creatures, now they act on their own. They act on their own. They're not under her command. They're on their own. But you just try to make the best with what you have. What Unk was doing was she had to release those emotions of being thrown in the water. And then she realized it was beautiful down there. And she decided, I'm going to make this my home. She made the best out of the situation. And it turned out better for her. So now she's the leader of one of the Wakan Tanka groups. So what started as being thrown in the water ended up her becoming a leader of one of the Wakan Tanka groups. So when somebody does something against you without just cause, it's only natural to want justice. And when you don't get it, taking revenge is not going to work. So you have to try something different. And that's what Unk did. And the result was she ended up in a better situation than she was before. Just think about that.
To read more about Lakota Star Knowledge spirituality, you can read my book called Wichocha Otechike. You can see the book cover on the right side of this screen. This book contains the information to what I talk about on my Lakota spirituality videos. To purchase this book, please click below where it says Show More. Clicking on that link will open up the description below, and there you will see a link called To Purchase My Books. As you will see, it's an eBay link. Click on that eBay link, and there you will see the information to get this book. Lila Pilamayelo. Thank you very much.